Hey YouTube, it's been a little while. Abraham loves having the camera on him, as you can see. I got an email from a JW. It was a rootin' tootin' good time. And I think this really needs to be examined based on some of the things that I laid down for him in the email. Now, this poor soul sent me this thing, showing all the things why the governing body is the faithful and discreet slave, all this, blah, 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 blah. And I emailed him back, and I said, this is all well and good, but if the governing body really is the faithful and discreet slave, can you tell me why it is that a Watchtower attorney has denied under oath that there even is a faithful and discreet slave, saying that it's just a theological concept? Now, this is when they were being prosecuted in Australia, and one of the people for them shirking the law about ministers getting background checks, and one of the people they were looking to, or one of the groups they were looking to prosecute, was a faithful and discreet slave. And that's when, in order to try to save their necks, their lawyer said, oh, well, there really isn't a faithful and discreet slave. And I sent him that, and it goes like water off a duck's back. And he says back to me, he emails back to me saying, I don't care, I have no problem with a theological concept. How about answering the question? Who is the faithful and discreet slave? If it is not represented by the governing body. And don't give me the same lame cop-out that it's anyone faithful. That is just intellectually lazy. So, I emailed him back saying, like, sir, a Watchtower representative explicitly denied in court that the faithful and discreet slave had anything to do with the Watchtower Corporation. This should really end the conversation. This should frankly cause you to leave the JWs. It's as if they're saying, hey, we can control the poor souls in our organization by snowing them about our leadership being the FDS, but hey, if the leadership is ever prosecuted, we'll have our representative tell the real truth about it. Really, think about it. If the governing body was the FDS Jesus was speaking about in Matthew 24, wouldn't they be willing to be prosecuted as them? Now, I just want to break in. And I was just thinking about this earlier as I was cutting the grass. Really, this should just blow the whole thing wide open. It's as if it's like your test of being the faithful and discreet slave would be willing to admit that you are in court, even if you're being prosecuted, whatever else. You wouldn't just shirk it, saying, oh, well, that's just really a theological concept, and say, oh, well, we're just lying. It's theocratic warfare. They don't deserve to know. Hey, I'd like to think that if I was in court for being a Christian, and my lawyer said, well, he's not really a Christian, that I would fire him and just take up my own representation and say, I am indeed a Christian, and if you want to throw the book at me for being a Christian, so be it. Back to the letter. I said, if the faithful and discreet slave is the governing body, why does Jesus call the faithful and discreet faithful and disgraceful, faithful and discreet slave him in Matthew 24, 46, and 47? If it was the governing body, wouldn't Jesus call the faithful and discreet slave they? What group is the wicked slave in Matthew 24, 48? What group is the slave beaten by many blows in Luke 12, 47? Which group is the slave beaten by few blows in Luke 12, 48? Why did the Watchtower join the UN for 10 years? And here's a warning, the library card excuse will be demolished. Why does the Watchtower Corporation produce literature saturated with lies? Have you ever seen the Should You Believe in the Trinity booklet expose? Why is the organization a pedophile paradise with case after case being covered up? Shouldn't they be doing more about this if they are the faithful and discreet slave? Why do they say it was the Creator's promise that the generation that saw 1914 wouldn't pass away before a peaceful new order came about every month for 10 years in Awake magazine. And when they said it, they meant the people who actually were alive to see 1914 events. Why does the book Crisis of Conscience exist? Look, exegeting the passage, especially in light of what is written in Luke, Jesus is simply talking about the fate of believers when he returns. People who live for his return and live Christ-like values, he will reward the way a master rewards a good servant. People who figure, hey, I can't imagine Jesus is coming back anytime soon and live sinfully will be punished. Those who don't know any better will be punished less severely. Those who did know better will be punished very severely. That's really all there is to this faithful and discreet slave business. This really needs to get out there because, like I said, if the governing body really was the faithful and discreet slave, they would have no problem even going to jail for the very notion of it. And if their attorney, without them knowing it, said, well, it's not really, it's just a theological concept, it's not really a group of people, they would have disfellowshipped that attorney and fired him. And they didn't. That means they're not the faithful and discreet slave. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses, please get your arms around this, get your minds around this, and enough. If the whole flip-flopping the idea of a generation 2 years ago wasn't enough, shouldn't this be enough? There are other things to do with your life, and I as a Christian can show you how great it is to truly live for Christ outside of this insane cult. But it's time to get out, and if you want help getting out, I'm here for you. But it's time to get out.